her mind, they wouldn't notice if I'm there or not. I mean, I'm talking to Sabina and Courtney.
Oh, no, they'll certainly understand.
Okay. I sent her a card with a gift in the card. Right. Okay.
I am
Got
Sylvia
it.
Miller-Mutia, and I'm here with Carla de Sola, and today we're going to watch and discuss a piece called In This Fateful Hour. So we will stop our videos and start the video recording of In This Fateful Hour. So this particular showing of In This Fateful Hour, hold on a second, I'm just going to make sure that I'm sharing the sound and the video. That'll work out better. Was for the 60th anniversary of the United Nations. But this piece has been done in different contexts at different times, but that's the recording that we're going to be seeing today.
I was very proud of that, I wanted to say, to be asked to do this. I don't quite remember the church in San Francisco, a big, well-known church, and to do this dance to honor the 60th anniversary I felt very honored to do that. And I know I brought my friend, my Tai Chi teacher, Lin Yi Wu, there. She played an important part, and I can't quite remember. Maybe it'll come to me. But we made a lot of it. It was a thing. And In This Fateful Hour, the title comes from a poem that Madeleine L'Engle recited once at the high altar, not the high altar, well, down there at St. John the Divine in New York City, where she was in residence. And she was some kind of peace gathering. And she stood out there with her arms to the side. And she has very long arms. So her arms seemed to span great distances. And she recited the poem just from memory. In this fateful hour, I place all heaven with its power, and the sun with its brightness and the moon with its whiteness. And she goes on through the whole thing. So it was that memory of her as a peace gesture that made me say, let's do a dance based on In This Fateful Hour.
Beautiful. All right, well, let's watch.
When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of my life, or my children's lives maybe, I go and lie down where the wood drape rests in its beauty on the water. And the great current feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and am free. Here, today, in this fateful hour, I place all heaven with its power, and the sun with its brightness, and the snow with its whiteness, and fire with all the strength it hath, and lightning with its rapid wrath, and the winds with their swiftness along the path, and the sea with its deepness, and the rocks with their steepness, and the earth with its darkness. All these I place by God's almighty help and grace between myself and the powers of darkness.
And then bearing the earth all the way back out. Wow.
Wow. Well, it was wonderful to see it this other time again. Is this a good time to talk or?
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
right.
perfect. I'm just going to have you start your video so people can see your face while you're talking. Well, I
Okay,
said
yes.
that I was not in that dance, but I very clearly was in that dance. I
Oh,
was like,
yes.
well, that's definitely me.
Yes. And I realized why I had asked my Tai Chi teacher to come because I had a whole sequence
Key
of her
sequence. Yep.
Tai Chi movement that I would study with her once a week.
Yep.
So gave it
I
an
saw that. I had
international.
forgotten, but
Oh, yes, and here and here and oh my goodness. I'm very moved by the ending in terms of we all have to care for the earth. It's such a poignant dance for this time of ecological awareness. My gosh. Um, how interesting, how interesting. Um, I just liked it when each one had to take hold of the earth. Um, to me, David had a very interesting role as being a African American black man. And at first, I didn't like the fact that I think it was you that was standing on his back.
yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I don't know if I like that." But then we were standing on someone else's back near the end. But then it was a sense of his deep, deep connection and responsibility somehow for the earth. It wasn't so much oppression as it was needing his strength of
Yeah.
support.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see how, I guess, that you might interpret or misinterpret that as some kind of domination, like, standing up in, but no, that sense of his strength.
The strength being what was needed right there. Ah,
Well, and I had forgotten that the prelude was that Wendell Berry poem. I think it's Wendell Berry.
yes, I was trying to think of yes, Wendell Berry, yes. And
And I remember
Stephen,
clearly rehearsing that one, being birds like cranes, the migrating cranes and the
oh,
cranes.
right, that's what you meant.
Boy, it came through very clearly. And actually, now that I live in New Mexico, the migration of the cranes is a really big deal here in New Mexico.
Whoa, interesting. Okay. Yes. No, right. No, I would like to look up the name of the church.
I cannot believe how much I don't remember that space. I remember the choreography, but I do not remember doing it in that space. I was interested to watch, as we've been watching each week, pieces, seeing little phrases reprised from piece to piece. So I recognized in this dance several phrases that showed back up in Beyond Words, our interfaith ritual for peace, in the river that connected each of the religions. There were a lot of similar transition movements. And then I was thinking about how this dance is a good example at the end, as we bear the earth down the center aisle and out into the world, that way that often in liturgical dance, perhaps much more than concert dance, there's this opportunity to kind of break that fourth wall, and then suddenly the audience is part of the thing. And I'm thinking about how when we would do "O Sacred Head" now on Palm Sunday or on Good Friday, that ends breaking that third wall, processing a body as if the body of Christ down that center aisle. And so that's a beautiful parallel, the bearing the earth down the center aisle, the bearing the body of Christ down the center aisle.
I want to make 2 points too. Two things we did, which I think came about through the freedom of the Pacific School of Religion and Doug Adams, that sometimes we broke that wall by passing something like the earth ball among the congregation. So each of them had a responsibility for a moment to realize they also had that. And the second point was when they followed us out the door and we made a big circle dance with the earth ball right in the center or some other symbol, whatever it might be. But those were two sort of kind of things we did several times during the semester. And both of them seem to me to be wonderful in terms of connecting with the congregation. So the dancers are really just a voice there. me see. Well, the main thing is that it's a good dance for these times.
It
Oh
is.
my gosh.
Or when is it not, placing
Mm-hmm.
ourselves by God's almighty help and grace between, the
Myself and the
powers.
powers of darkness.
Um, I'm curious if there were any other full pieces that you can remember using the earth ball for. I remember us doing sort of smaller things with the earth ball or having it at Lawrence Livermore Labs on Good Friday. I recall incorporating the earth ball into various piece
But
actions.
no, this was the only
But I
piece.
feel like this is the one that was the real like standalone piece where that was the real centerpiece.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think the rest were like we did in Albuquerque for Hiroshima. I mean, you use the earth
Or
ball
like a prop in a
as a
community.
prop rather than it being the central importance and focus. Yes, you're right. That's true. Oh my, I'm moved to see that again because I followed it much more closely. I wasn't tired or something, and I really appreciated the. You three are beautiful dancers. I really three, four. I mean the four. Right.
I'm curious if you remember, because I do not remember the motivation. There was a movement that was sort of like drawing an arrow and then down to the earth.
Yes.
And I don't remember what the motivation was. What it made me think of watching it this time, this actually made me think of oil drilling and the kind of extraction of resources from the earth. That's what it made evoked for me in watching it. But I don't
It wasn't my intention because that seems like a totally new idea to me. But as I did it, something is there. Uh, I don't know, but it's a sense of being grounded deep in the earth. And this seems like an arrow or something, or
I mean, it definitely has that arrow. The other thing that I can recall us doing something that felt similar is when you would talk about Mary and a sword shall pierce your own heart also. But
the
that's
dynamic is a
like,
change from a flowing, soft dynamic to a bound and strong dynamic. And that makes interest. Yes. I don't remember what I gave you in terms of the motivation. Maybe it'll come to me. I have to think about it. Oh, good question. It's past, it brings in a sense of urgency, and
yeah.
this is, it's interesting to think of it as I don't drill for oil, but I don't know if it says that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and I think, art as I think I read this in Nancy Chen's book about sacred space, that the difference between art and propaganda is that art is of necessity multivalent, that it can hold multiple meanings at one time. If it can't,
Yes,
then it's not art, it's propaganda. If it's only to be
very good.
interpreted
It's
in one.
not only, I don't remember Nancy Chin saying that, but there was a whole book. It had to do with a well-known artist during the Nazi Germany time, and I have to find it in my studio what it was. But it was again a whole thing on the difference between propaganda and art. Interesting that that's brought up here. I hadn't thought of that in a long time. Um, let's say, let me see if there's anything. I wrote some notes as I was watching it. Uh, the stepping on the back, the ritual, passing on the ball. It's very powerful to pass it down the aisle. That is true. That is true and out. And
Well,
we
and
all are responsible.
dance, we're passing it when we're kneeling on the floor, and so then you're kind of bearing it with your back. I felt like that was incredibly powerful too, because you could sort of see the sense of the weight of the world as
Mm. And to me, it was so important because I respected Madeleine L'Engle enormously, not only as a writer, but as a person. And she was in residence at St. John the Divine Cathedral in the Synod House. And once I was feeling very unhappy over something. I was crying. One of my dancers told me he couldn't dance at the last moment in the Passion or something. And I was crying, and she came out and she said, "What's the matter? Let's go and have a cup of coffee together." There was a little place next door. Oh, that was so wonderful. So that when we did this sort of peace weekend, and here she is there, with her arms like that. At one point, your arms are all to the side.
Well, that's kind of how it starts, right? Each of us take place. Well, and just the kind of the threads that we may or may not be aware of. So I, as a child and as an adult, adore Madeleine L'Engle's novels. And in one of her young adult novels, that St. Patrick's rune is what that poem is.
St. Patrick's rune, yes.
It's the I don't know, kind of the golden thread through this whole novel that's about, I mean, she writes kind of science fiction, so there's always this permeable time of past, present, and future, but essentially it's about averting a nuclear holocaust. And that this rune, the grandmother keeps remembering bits and bits of it, and it ends up somehow being a piece of the puzzle that averts global disaster. And so it definitely fits in with
yes, and I was puzzling even then with the idea of all these I placed by God's eternal help and grace between myself and the powers of darkness. Those are the last lines. And I said, but no, we need to be protecting them now, rather than them putting themselves between us and the powers of darkness.
Elements of creation being the protectors, and now us needing to again step in and and protect the elements of creation. Oh, that's beautiful.
Well, and that was a long time ago that thought came to me.
Yeah.
So this has been going on for quite a while.
Oh. Well, I think we can probably wrap up this recording.